Hey guys, welcome to the Lunge and Lift podcast. Today we've got a great episode in store for you with a very special guest, Mr. Max Rusowski. Max goes into all sorts of interesting and some surprising things on the weightlifting front. He's got loads of experience, and we get into some really technical pointers for the beginner, but also the advanced lifter, the common mistakes he's seen across his breadth of weightlifting coaching. And we get some secret insight into the Chinese way of doing things, which is quite counter to, I think, some common approaches in executing and also coaching weightlifting. So tune in if you're just getting into weightlifting or you've been doing it for a long time, and share it to somebody who might be interested. But before we get into it, as always, a big thank you to our show sponsors, thetrainingstimulus.com. Please check it out if you are interested in learning more about movement mechanics. Wit-fitness.com. Use our discount code LL15 to get 15% off your purchase. And Hydro, use our discount code LL20 to get 20% off your blood flow restriction apparel. Right, let's get into it. Max, welcome to the show. How are you doing, mate?
Hey, good, very good. How are you guys?
You're very good, mate. Very good.
Very
Thank
well,
you very much for coming on.
Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, so for
Thanks for
the
having
listeners
me.
who might not know who you are, Max, could you give us a quick introduction, who you are, what you're doing right now?
So I started my training career in judo. So when I was very young, like 6 years old, I started to train judo. Went through like a 12-year timeline where I was competing on an international level and all that stuff. And then found myself after a year of doing nothing, having a break, that I'm quite depressed of doing so much training and then doing nothing. So my friend took me for a training session to a new gym, and that was CrossFit. So the classic kind of scenario where I got hooked, trained, and then became a coach, and yeah, now we're here.
Now we're here, and you've got a long, detailed background in weightlifting as well. So can you tell us about how you went from CrossFit into weightlifting?
So basically along the line, I think like 2 or 3 years into CrossFit training, like proper training, where we try to be like people in the States, train twice a day, having no idea what to do, but we did it. um, like the CrossFit world was not really evolving so quickly, so it became a bit boring. Like it wasn't like now that you have an event every weekend, you can win money and stuff like that. That wasn't the case. So I kind of lost a bit of interest in doing it because we were quite good at the time in the gym I used to be, one of the first boxes in Poland. And I found my friend who is a weightlifting coach, and he asked me, he was like, "Hey, how old are you?" And I was like 21 at the time. And he was like, "You want to do like a cool kind of high place in like under 23 years old, like in the uni and stuff?" And I was like, "Whoa, do you think I have a chance?" He was like, "Yeah, for sure." So I used to CrossFit snatch and CrossFit clean and jerk, which was quite interesting, quite arty. And then I went basically from full CrossFit into, I trained still a bit of CrossFit, but got hooked on that weightlifting thing. And we trained like 4 times a week at least. And I always trained with the coach, which also made a huge difference. And yeah, in a period of 2 years, I started to really become consistent and change my whole technique. And yeah, and I did. I took a third place in like under 23 in the Polish Championships, which was like quite cool. Quite cool.
Blimey, that's good. That's as good as a first innings.
Yeah. So like the funny thing is like when I went to the weightlifting competition, I looked like a CrossFitter, like any lifters and stuff like that. Like back in the day, a few years ago, like weightlifters are quite like raw and like not much color and stuff. And like, yeah, that was quite funny. They looked at me like a clown. But then the funny part was that the guy who won the competition, he had like a total 50 or 60 kilos more than me.
Oh, shit.
Blimey.
So yeah, the gap was quite huge. So it was also inspiring for me to like go to these weightlifting places and like see the culture from their side, because I also had that chat after the competition we hosted that with few people, and I was like, if you would try to explain this thing to somebody who doesn't train, or even they train but they don't understand too much weightlifting, they would think you are mentally like not there. Like, what is interesting in it? Like, really, people lifting 3 times one lift and then that's it. But then, like, if you're actually there and like you see it on your own with your own eyes, it's actually quite exciting.
Yeah. What was it that drew you to weightlifting initially? What was it about it? Obviously, you were naturally quite good at it, or you were already very good at it just from your CrossFit. But is it the simplicity of that it's just those 2 lifts? Like, tell us what caught your eye.
I think the kind of the mental scenario from judo, which is an individual sport, going into weightlifting made me feel good in it, because like basically in individual sports you are reliable on yourself, and it's some people find it hard, and I find it very good. Like, I don't like people around me, like I don't like teammates and stuff like that. I prefer to do everything on my own, and then if I fuck it up, it's my fault. If I do something good, it's the only reason why it happened, right? But basically, I think that, plus also that, I don't know if you had that voice when you started to train, but like when I started to train cross weightlifting, as I call it, I used to smack the bar with my pubic bone and all that stuff, and it used to be very painful and uncomfortable. And then when I found a way that it is actually comfortable, like it's doing a lift actually feels good, and then I got just hooked. I was like, wow, this feels so great. Like, and if I can lift loads of weights in this way, like, yeah, it's just super good. Like, it felt great, so I started to do it.
Yeah, it's funny because for me, when I've gone through periods of weightlifting, how there is a difference between weightlifting and powerlifting, where it's like, I think we spoke about it when Chris Swede was on, and it's how like with powerlifting, it is just like you can just turn up pretty much most days and grind through the reps, grind through the sets, and you'll get through the work. But if you're not mentally there, and you've kind of touched on it a few times today, but if you're not fully present when you're weightlifting, it shows, because your lifts go to shit, you look like shit doing the lifts, and you'd probably be better off having a rest day. So because if you're not actually there, the risk of injury and everything is so much higher. And yeah, it's really interesting because, again, from your judo background being such a individual sport, I think where my background isn't really in any team sport whatsoever, it was very much, I didn't train really or do any type of fitness until I was much later in age. And even when I did, everything was then individual. That's why, again, doing powerlifting, doing weightlifting and stuff like that has been always quite a draw to me, strength sports, because it is you and that's the only thing. Whereas I think now, if I want to do any like team things, or if I want to do any like CrossFit things, I want to do it in a team, because I don't want to put myself in that hole myself. I'd much prefer to be with a partner, or like a team, taking myself to a place, and also just so I can get a bit more rest, because I need that rest period.
So that's a very interesting thing what you're saying, because like this is also how I got actually into competing. So the box where I started to train and I became a coach, we had 2 very good women and 3 very good men, me including 2 other. And like back in the days, the kind of CrossFit games set up for the teams and everything was 3 men plus 2 women, or something like that. So every competition we could go to was actually a team competition, and we wanted to do it, and that actually got me hooked to do individual competitions later on, because as you say, A, it's very painful to do a single CrossFit competition. B, loads of competitions are set up to kill the competitor, which is nonsense. Like, you should test them, not kill them. Like, everybody can do 200 thrusters, but what's the point of it, right? And then what I want to say, and then also it was nice to train in the team, because in CrossFit, I think there is not much of a team spirit, in terms of like, if you're all good and you support each other, that's the team. But you don't have much of an influence in your teammate when you're actually on the competition. Like, if they're good and you are good, you have a good base work and everything is working. You just synchronize in these synchro movements and you work as a team together well. It's, in my opinion, kind of simple, more simple than, let's say, playing basketball, playing football, positions and stuff like that, right? Like, if I do something wrong, the other teammates in the team sport can't help it, right? In CrossFit, they actually can. If a guy is great, movement, and you know that then like, yes, I mean, I think it's more of a tactic sport rather than team sport, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
no, that makes perfect sense. It really does.
Yeah.
So
Great. Yeah. So, Max, when you switched from CrossFit into weightlifting, one of the reasons we wanted to get you on is that's the very, very common journey. A lot of people get into CrossFit or functional fitness and then fall in love with weightlifting. And because it's such a commonly trodden path, and you've done it and you've also coached a lot of people through that, we wanted to get your expert opinion on the patterns that you see on that journey. So, can you start by talking us through your transition from CrossFit heavy training into having a bigger weightlifting focus? You mentioned earlier that you had a CrossFit snatch and a CrossFit clean and jerk. What does that mean, and how did you fix it?
right. So basically, when we used to learn anything, it was from YouTube, because like nobody in Poland like understood CrossFit and stuff. So basically everything was done by feeling. That's why I also kind of became good in the beginning, because like I was just grabbing a bar and trying to make it fly, right? Whatever works, it's good, right? So basically when I say CrossFit snatch, like position in the snatch pull is a straight line, kind of, more or less, right? My position was like a C, and I was banging hips the bar as much as I could. The bar would travel around me and then sit on me, and whatever how powerfully I could bang the bar and it could go over my head, then I would make it. And I snatched like this 107 and a half.
Blimey.
So yeah, but in CrossFit days that was massive back in the day. And yeah, and then when I learned, actually a funny anecdote, I met with the best Polish CrossFitter in at the time, and I trained with him, and I asked him, I was like, mate, how you do the snatch and you don't have any bruises and you don't feel pain? And he sold me a great trick. You know what he do? He cuts from a how we call, like a Converse thing, like how we call the shoe, which is like a classic shoe which everybody wears.
So,
Yeah, so he cuts a sole out of the shoe, the classic kind of shoe. He cuts it out and he puts it on the pubic bone and he back. And I was like, and then when he told me that, right, I left the gym and I was like, that can't be real. Like that can't. It's so wrong. Like it's definitely not. And then when I met my friend who is also a weightlifting coach, we started to train. And the funny part with the training was he didn't train me like a weightlifter, in terms of like he liked to give me tasks. So he would say to me, for example, build to a heavy 5-rep max thruster from the racks. I want to see what you can do. And I treated everything what he kind of gave me, as a challenge. And like I failed the 5th rep on 100 kilos back in the day, right? And it was massive. But then I was like, and then he would sit with me and be like, look, you're driving your hips too much forward, so the bar goes behind you, and that's why you can't lift more. And then I would be like, oh, that's a good point. And I started to train in this way. And I think that's why I have a great understanding as a coach to kind of transforming people from CrossFit into weightlifting. Because the trick is they know how to lift in their own way, but it doesn't mean it's like completely wrong. It's not like you have to strip everything and start from zero. You can transfer, like kind of evolve from this lifting to a better lifting. And I think that's the main problem in the CrossFit world now, and with the CrossFit, and the weightlifters, that they think their liftings are so separate, but they're actually not. Like the barbells, all that stuff, it's done more or less in both of the sports, right? Like you have some, like the classic drill, for example, for weightlifters when they are not great at the bar path up, right? What they do a deadlift, snatch or clean deadlift, and then slowly they go down, they touch the floor, and they do the lift. CrossFitters do it faster with lighter weight, but similar thing, right? So yeah, so that was my main thing. Obviously, we done technical work a bit, like he always told me, like to do this, to change this a bit, but it was mostly done by challenges. And I could only PB with one. I had always one shot. So let's say we would do our sets on, like, I don't know. I did the most impressive thing, I think, for now. I did 3 singles on a power snatch on 100, right? And after this session, my coach was like, "It looks great. I can give you one shot on the like whatever number you want. for a PB, and that also made me go like, prepared me for like weightlifting, that I have one shot, because he never let me do it again, even if it would be very close. You'd be like, no, that's it. It was a bonus round. Or you make it or you don't. So
I like that a lot. I think that's a very common experience with CrossFitters, in that they're very good at moving a barbell in certain ways, and there are some common themes between other lifts and the Olympic lifts, but there are some key differences, and especially that heavy hip contact and what I call like a loopy bar path out and in front makes it very difficult for the bar to land nicely on top of you in the snatch. So do you have any, I know everyone's different, but do you have any sort of practical pointers if somebody does have that heavy hip contact and loopy bar path in the snatch? What were some things that you did or that you've done with your clients to help iron that out? Because I know a lot of people struggle to change that if it's baked in from a lot of hinge work, especially.
So basically, I always start with teaching the footwork again. Like, I found out that like literally the whole lift is always in your feet, and as long as you balance on your feet, you will have a good lift, and you will never overextend. You will never do the loopy thing. So basically, the weight of the center of balance, as they always say, it should be between your ball of the foot and the ankle bone, right? I call it, like, I simplify it a bit and I go toes and heels, right? But the main thing is you need to stay balanced between those two all the time. You can't lose one or the other one. And that's the whole game. And if you explain that with pulls or like, now I learned from that Chinese weightlifting seminar, which I did lately, a panda pull, like phenomenal tools to make people understand the footwork and the balance. Because then if you think about it, if you stay balanced in any movement, the movement will be great. But that's the main problem which people have. So the first thing is, which I agree and disagree, is when people say jump. It's hard in a society of sitting people to explain to them that they have to very fast stand up. That doesn't happen. They don't understand it. Their body can't kind of comprehend it through the brain. So jumping isn't ideal, but it's always a way of teaching it. But then the next thing what I would do besides the feet is basically explain that the bar needs to always stay very close to the body. And then physics comes in, right? Like I never thought about it that I'm gonna train a sport or whatever, or a strength sport, and then somebody will be like, oh yeah, do you understand the physics of it? Which was also be like, look, this is inefficient. This goes here heavier and stuff like that. So basically, slow down the movement. Try to do it in a more strict way. So like, for example, if you have a no foot full snatch, right? You can do it in a slow motion with moving everything in the same time, finishing the lift, obviously with a little, like a technical bar or even just an empty bar, depending on how strong you are, and then start speeding that up. Because that's the thing which I learned, that people think that you have to do weightlifting very fast, but you can also do it very slow. It just can't be done with big. But then you have, again, a better understanding of the movement, so you can make faster something where you understand, rather than trying to just be fast and hope for the best.
Yeah, I always found with weightlifting in particular, that as soon as I slowed down the initial, as I think, like you said, slowing down kind of makes it sound maybe a bit too dramatic. But if you slow down the first pull, it gives you enough time mentally to prepare yourself to then get your knees back through into that vertical pull position, because you've gone past the knees. Whereas most of the time people pull so fast from the floor, it's out and it's so far away from them, so it's not even traveling close to their body. Like you said, that's your cue. It's so far out that then they have to pull themselves back in, and they bang the bar, and that's why they go forward in their movement. It's because they're always chasing, because their first pull is normally too fast. And I think most people, including myself over the years, used to think that if you don't pull from the floor fast, it's not going to go fast. But it's understanding that transition from steady to bang, like that jumping analogy that you said that people can't quite get. Once you start to really feel that movement and feel the understanding of the transition between pull one and pull two, then bang, that's where your power comes.
It's like I always like to use analogies from all the sports, right? And like, if you think about sprinters, right? They don't fucking sprint from the first thing. They warm up. They have a quicker, slower drill or whatever. Like, you need to prepare your body to be fast, right? So you start with being slow, as you say, like as you said, like the slow first pull or even slow pull variations of the lift are great variations because they prepare you how to lift. Although that's not how you lift, right? It's a drill, is a warm up thing, and then you're ready to go. You go a bit faster. But what people also underestimate is the strength part of the sport. Like, it's a strength sport with a big emphasis on speed, but you can only be as fast as you can, right? You can't be as fast as the guy you watched or whatever. Like, you need to rely on your strength and your speed. But again, the speed can't exceed your kind of perception. Otherwise, you will just not do great.
Yeah, I love that. Two things I loved in that conversation. One is the balance point in the feet. I think a lot of people, when they're trying to be as powerful as possible, they rock from heel to toe. And that makes sense in some situations, like especially in running, or if you're going to do a broad jump, for example. But in the sport of weightlifting, the force all needs to go upwards. So your balance point, like you say, shouldn't really change in the foot. And if someone did do a slow weightlifting drill focusing entirely on that, you're 100% correct in that the bar can't go away from you, because as soon as the bar goes out in front, the weight has to shift to your toes because it's the only point of contact with the world. So I think if anybody getting into their weightlifting listening to this, that would be my number one suggestion, is build consciousness of where the weight is in your feet when you're doing your warm-ups, when you're doing your slow pulls, so that you can feel if it is changing throughout the lift, because it shouldn't. And if you can keep it there, the chances are you're going to have to iron out that swing out in front, because there's no way you can have a heavy bar a foot in front of you without the weight being in your toes. Like, that's a physics impossibility. And the other thing that I think people should re-listen to in what Rob said is, in slowing down the first pull, when you think about the fastest speed you put into a bar, it needs to be an acceleration. So if you try and go max speed at the start, you can't go any faster at the finish of the pull. So actually, by going a little bit slower at the start, you can go faster at the end, and the acceleration is actually where most of the force comes from. So those two concepts, I think, for beginners especially, transform the way that their experience of a lift comes about.
Definitely. Ash, the key point is, like, the bar should always go faster the further it is from the ground, and that's a rule. If you start slow and you finish fast, super cool. If you start slow and you finish slow, my God.
I think for me, it's the speed element of it is, I think, why I've always been drawn back to powerlifting, because I'm just not that fast of an individual. But I do look forward to getting back into some weightlifting in the coming months. I think another one that you kind of loosely touched on as well there is, again, about the weight of the bar, or like the weight that they're actually using to perform these lifts. So like we spoke about using a technique bar or an empty barbell, I think more respect needs to be put into time with the empty barbell, of actually learning movement and breaking it down. I know something that really helped me transition from, say, a CrossFitter snatch to, I say, a semi okay weightlifting snatch, was going through some muscle snatches. Like, for me, muscle snatches really helped me understand the vertical pull and just helped me get the better connection and stuff like that, because I always wanted to just pull everything early and use my strength to dictate where the bar went. Like what you said, how you started out with your weightlifting, I kind of stayed there probably for a little bit longer than you did and kept it a lot more just like brute strength. But when I then actually brought things back and realized how shit I was when it comes to the muscle snatch compared to, say, everything else, I was like, wow, I'm really lacking the understanding of the movement, and that really helped me.
Yeah. So touching base, I think we're gonna go deeper later into it, but like touching base with that Chinese weightlifting seminar I did with Coach Ma, like all the Chinese, they do so much muscle snatch. You wouldn't believe. Like, really? Preparing now to the English, I was very like very challenged with my training, so I didn't want to really lift. I felt a bit like that I don't really want to do it and stuff. I did the seminar, it was like 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I got a template of how they train, and I trained with this style, so it's going to be interesting also to see on the English if it pays off. But they love a muscle snatch, and the point also in training, which was great, they added it. You can max out your muscle snatch, and the next day you can snatch because it's not such a big strain on your body. So you have a great point. Like I love a muscle variation. It also teaches you how to stay balanced on the feet again. But what I think is also lacking in people's like kind of like training when they start, they don't have fun with the barbell. I didn't have it either because I didn't know that you can do so many different variations of exercises. Like when I got challenged with the press in the bottom of the squat behind the neck in the snatch press, right? Like that's a basic movement which they all do to just warm up, right? But who from the CrossFitters can do it? Nobody, because they try to do it. They don't take it as a challenge. They think, oh, it's too hard, I'm not going to do it. I'm very curious if when you tried to do a bar muscle up, you did the same.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. The muscle snatch, I love the muscle snatch especially for beginners, because it's more punishing of deviations in bar path. It's if you go out in front in a muscle snatch, there's very little chance of you making the transition. So yeah, I think that's a great bit of advice as well. So we've given a few technical pointers there for the beginners. In terms of overall approach, are there some common mistakes that you see as well? I think the classic ones would probably be just doing your weightlifting in workouts rather than having some focused attention on technique. But can you dig a little bit deeper into the patterns you see there?
Basically, the biggest common mistake, which I always like laugh about inside, of course, I don't laugh at people, but inside, is that everybody loves to shag the bar. They all look for this contact with the bar, but the contact of the bar is not the goal. It's a end goal of your nice stand up and all that stuff. And that's what you said, Ash, like rocking toes to heels and stuff. You can only shag the bar if you rock from toes to heels. If you're gonna be in a good position with a good grip on the clean or on the snatch, if you're just gonna stand up straight, the bar will touch your point wherever your arms are straight. That's going to be touched, and that's the connection which people should look for. So they should think that standing up with the bar is the goal and then trying to master it, rather than going over the knee and then going, oh yeah, I got it, and then goes. You can hear it, and it's painful because like whoever done this in their lives, like I've done it multiple times.
Yeah.
Some of my competitions, I literally had an ice sack on my crotch because it was so painful. Any movement in my abs or something would cause me like stress on it, and I was like, it was purple, like awful. So that's definitely the main mistake which CrossFit, and I think the wrong kind of focus on watching lifters. So a lot of people watch weightlifts, especially now with the hook grip kind of thing and stuff. They watch them do it slowly and they see them connecting with the hips. But what is very important, look at the feet. Look at the feet. Are the feet like some of the top level athletes, they want to be on the toes to create a bigger vertical thing, but that's an anomaly. You want to keep the full feet on the floor and do that. If you connect with the bar and you have full feet on the floor, respect, then cool, do it. But if not, no, don't do it. So that's the first misconception. And the second one is, in my opinion, is you don't pay enough respect for the starting position. I always say that the lift is an outcome of your start position. So if you have a shit start position, your lifting always going to be shit, and you can't repair it. You can't do anything to make it good. So I don't know if you've seen, but that's another thing, like kind of workouts, not maybe teach, but they kind of suggested that you have to go to the bar, pick it up with your arms and start lifting, right? And that's the main problem what I see when I try to teach CrossFitters or people without understanding of any kind of bar work, that you need to sit there, you need to feel your back, you need to feel balanced, and you need to stand up. That's it, what you need. And then when you do it over time, that's going to end up with a nice pull, with a nice lift and everything. But if I like to say on classes that like if you think of a barbell like a sack of potatoes that you grab it and you throw it over your shoulder like a sandbag or whatever, then the lift will never look good.
I like
So
that.
yes, two main things I would say.
That reminds me of, like, you look at someone, I guess, with that ability to kind of get that feeling of where you are in the bar, that feeling in your back, and that balance will become a lot quicker as you become a lot more proficient at it. Because you look at someone like, say, Matt Fraser, when he done one of the last games workouts a couple of years ago, when it was like 30 snatches, 30 ring muscle ups, and 30 clean and jerks. Watching how he performed all those lifts, they were all executed so well. Obviously, with his massive weightlifting background, he literally just approached that bar so methodically, and you could just see that there was so much balance, even when he was gassed on the last set of like clean shoulders to overheads. Basically, he was so gassed on those last, say, 10 reps, but they all still looked the same, and that was the beautiful thing about it, because as soon as this is the positive thing with CrossFit, how it introduced everyone to weightlifting, but it introduced everyone to weightlifting under intensity. And I think that was where then it got misunderstood, because then I think the technical prowess that you describe in there, and like the thing about balance and stuff, you don't have the ability to do that. And because there was then weights that were not that heavy, like at the time and stuff like that, like 60 kilos, for most people can do a relatively crappy snatch or shoulders to overhead, ground to overhead pretty easily when you're seasoned enough. So then the idea of I'm just going to go heavier and heavier and not actually break that down took a long time, until you started to get like the weightlifting coaches coming into the sport, and actually people wanted to specialize because they're realizing that they're just being either really inefficient with their pulls, getting hurt, or just massively hitting a wall and not being able to progress from there. And I think that was something where I found myself when I focused on just weightlifting for a period of time. How I approach then weightlifting now still is affected by that period of time when I just did weightlifting, because I understand that thing about balance, even with my powerlifting. That's why and this is kind of off topic, but when I unrack a barbell for a back squat, both feet are always underneath the bar. I'm standing up first and I do not move until I feel that bar is fully connected with me. I then step back, wait till I'm fully connected again with the floor, feel all my feet. Then I execute the lift. And I just, when I watch people, and I know even high level people do this, but they go under a bar, 1 foot out, and kind of step back with one leg. And I'm like, especially weightlifters, and you see it a lot with weightlifters, and I'm just like, and they're squatting some big weights. And you're just like, I'm not going to tell a fucking guy that's squatting like 100 kilos more than me, that's not how to do it. But again, to talk about these anomalies, balance is the name of the game when you are trying to move a barbell. And I'm really glad that you've said this, because it's just, I do this instinctively with my lifts, and I talk about it all the time with members and stuff, and because it's so important.
Yeah, but
I think. Go on,
hey,
Max.
Rob, sorry, as you say, Rob, it's like, I don't know if you realize, but every time you speak about it, it's like it's a conscious effort, but you go into your brain, you're in your thoughts, you feel, you control your body like you would drive like a car, but here, and that's the most important part. That's why, like as you say, weightlifting under high intensity will never be great, because they never feel their bodies, and the problem is like that. You even spoke about it on the podcast, like the high intensity junkies. They don't understand that, for example, what brought me to like really consciously thinking was the 2-minute rest. My coach always said, do a lift and sit down. And I was like, no, but I'm ready to go. And he's like, I don't care. You need to sit down. And then I started to understand that, like, you sit, you recap what was happening. There's a lot of thoughts going through your brain. So if you don't process that, you're actually not training.
Yeah, I love that. I think the consciousness is a huge part of weightlifting, because it is so technical and there are so many things to focus on. Like you say, when people first encounter weightlifting in a Metcon under fatigue, and like Rob said, if you're strong and you're able to go RX or able to use like a moderately heavy barbell and you can get the job done, the thing that I think gets lost is that the stimulus for a Metcon is to challenge your output. Like, can you get the work done? The emphasis isn't necessarily on movement patterns and efficiency. So if you can get through the workout doing like ugly muscle snatches and do it quite quick, you're kind of applauded for that, and that's fine for the purpose of a metcon where you're going to get sweaty and just try and win the race essentially. Whereas that's very, very distinct from doing weightlifting to lift maximal load, where all those intricate details really, really matter. And being able to focus on your balance point, being able to focus on those very specific technical cues, it is impossible for 99% of people under that fatigue in that combination with other movements. So I guess for me, that's probably one of the biggest weightlifting mistakes for people coming from CrossFit, is that they think they can get better at weightlifting when the majority of their reps are coming through a metcon. What you're actually doing there is potentially ingraining bad habits, because you can get away with that kettlebell swing loopy snatch in a metcon when you're working at 40% of your max. But that in the end makes it harder to change and make it more efficient unless you've got a big chunk of technical work on top of that to help iron things out.
I think leading from that as well, kind of what you said, Max, where that 2-minute rest, because obviously in metcons a lot of the time there isn't that rest, so the ability to review what you've done, have the ability to think. And it's like, I know when I record a lot of my warm-up sets on the way up, not to post on Instagram and shit like that. It's actually to see, cool, why did that feel like that? Or, I was a little bit too much in my heels there. Or one of my reps I did the other day, I squatted and my toes come up the floor. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? But then the next set was heavier. I didn't stay at that weight because I knew what I'd done wrong. And I knew how to correct it. It was just, I didn't think. And then had that thing of consciousness coming back in and said, right, this is what happened in the last set. And this is now how to rectify in this set. Let's focus on this. And again, what was the focus? Where am I pushing into in my feet? Where is my connection? Right, bang. The rest of the lift is going to happen because I have the capacity to move what I'm moving. I just need to make sure I'm balanced.
I completely agree, but it's again like the part of the conscious training which people avoid, which I think this is what makes a great competitor and anybody who wants to be good at things. I think the conscious training is a big part. Like you say that you video your warm-up set, right? In weightlifting, I also warm up my sets where I warm up and stuff like that, because the proprioception of our body is so different every day. Sometimes I feel a lift was awful. I'm like, what the fuck was that? I look at the video, it was super easy, super nice. But my feeling of it was awful. But then other days, I feel, oh my God, this was a great lift. And I look at it and it goes literally like a C, nice. And I'm like, whoa, okay, it was. So,
feels versus reels.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think it's like very important also to be aware of it. Because like, if you don't know that your own brain can trick you into things, how are you going to be good? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I think that leads us nicely into the next question I wanted to ask you. Was we've got quite a lot of very good lifters who listen to the podcast as well. So I think we've done a good job of giving some great advice to those moving into weightlifting, starting to take it more seriously. But what are the patterns you see in people who are already taking it more seriously, who are already performing well and quite strong? Are there very different patterns that you see and common mistakes that are holding people back at a more advanced level?
So in this case, I will use a different kind of, let's say, language for a similar thing with a balance. So most good athletes I watch, for example, snatch. The problem of some of things, you do too much. You do too much, basically. So let's say if you do a snatch, right, and you're well balanced and you finish the snatch, but your head is a kilometer in front of your bar, and you're literally lying on your chest on your knees. Although this is how you snatch, that's cool, but you will, for example, never be more mobile because of that. Because the center of the weight is not pushing you down, it's pushing you forward, right? So if you're gonna start understanding that with some pauses, or like not in the clean, but in the snatch, for example, the Chinese, they always pause in the bottom because the legs are always so strong that you can't stand up. So they train the snatch from the lifting from the floor to the bottom of the squat. That's when it finishes.
Oh, really?
Example. But then you have like Lou or whatever, who he squats like 380 or whatever, ridiculous numbers, of course. But besides that, like, my main kind of like my main advice will be to, for example, video yourself or do a shot of your bottom of your squat and see if really the bar is over your ankle bone and if it's really straight. Because that, if you're already good at weightlifting and you will improve this, your lifts will go up very, very high, like even to 10 or more kilos, because you will just feel stable. And that's what Rob said before when he does his back squats and stuff. If you feel that the weight is pushing you down and you can push the ground away and stand up with the weight, you will always just have a much nicer lift. Plus, you will be able to shift much more. But besides that, just find a way with different exercises to training weightlifting, but not in the same way. So like, for example, one of my favorite things now, what I do is a Ma row. So the guy invented a row where you are in a hang position on your knee height with a barbell. And what you do is you go around and away of the body and you touch your kind of collarbone neck and press the bar away and you go back to the knee. And what's the point of this exercise, for example? You keep your head high and it trains the middle of the back. Insane, but helped me a lot with my snatching now. Because now when I stand up, I feel so well my middle of the back that it just flies up. And again, like I do 30 to 40 kilos with straps even to not tire me before the session. Few sets, and it's phenomenal. And it changed the game really, really a lot. So find ways of training your positions in a different way. So the press behind the neck of the snatch, the Maro, there is some all different sorts of exercises which you can do, but basically have a play with the bars a bit more. Spend more time doing exercises with the bars. Don't do just the same exercise over and over, because doing different exercises, like, I don't know, like again, we go back to the conscious training, but me as a weightlifter, I was only good because I understood how to snatch a heavy dumbbell very well before. I was like, okay, close, it flies very close up and I can snatch like 30-35 kilos into a squat with a dumbbell. So then having something which I could kind of put into the barbell made me go, okay, this is similar, now I get it. But yeah, that would be the first thing. And the second thing, again, slow down the movements. Do a muscle variation, try to build up a heavier muscle variation or heavier power variation. Do no foot movements. Give yourself tasks which will force you to do certain things rather than trying to make a perfect lift, because that's what made me even better after a few years of training, where you have these little like tasks which makes the lift harder to complete, but then it actually overall after time makes you a better lifter.
I love that. We did a whole episode on limiters, and I think weightlifting is a perfect example of a sport where it's all about identifying your limiter. So when you're advanced, obviously the big rocks are in place already. You've probably got most of the basic technical details in, but there's going to be a couple which are preventing you from adding weight to the bar in weightlifting, presuming that your strength numbers are good enough. So if you can identify those accurately, then having those targeted variations will be the thing that brings up the weak link in the chain. And I think that Maro is actually a lovely drill for keeping the bar close. You're essentially exaggerating that bad bar path so that the muscles that keep the bar on a good path become more aware and become stronger at being able to keep the bar nice and close. So I think that as a principle illustrates really nicely how if you're already strong, then ironing out those small creases will be the thing that enables you to keep adding weight to your lifts. Really nice.
True. Yeah. So maybe we'll touch base now on the Chinese weightlifting.
Yeah, with the Chinese weightlifting. So just going on that, watching how you lift across the board generally over the years, I've definitely thought you moved like a Chinese weightlifter anyway. So something about your snappiness and how vertical you are, you just very much look like a Chinese weightlifter. How did that come about? It seems obviously coming from Poland and Eastern Europeans, like the way they lift does look slightly different to Chinese weightlifters. How did your weightlifting style come about? And then what did you learn from this seminar that you've either already doing and that you already got some influence, or what have you now put in place ready for your competitions and your clients?
So basically, to explain quickly, like the Eastern Europeans, like the Bulgarians, the Russians, they basically do everything really, really based on strength and speed and like power. So like because in like civilization wise, we are much stronger people than the Asians, right? So basically, what is the difference? We jump, we smash the heels in the floor, we get a lot of tension, we get a lot of power, but it's a bit messy, if that makes sense. So the accuracy of these lifts might sometimes go wrong because something went wrong, right? Some of the factors, whatever it was. But the Chinese people, they made they literally created a version of it which is accurate to 100%. So like now when I started to train with that method, like I don't drop lifts. That doesn't happen. When my bar drops, I'm actually surprised. They would drop and I'll be, okay, this happened because I do this, like this what went wrong, right? Now I'm actually surprised. I'm like, wow, it shouldn't drop, right? and that's another thing which I took out of it is like Coach Ma said that you train weightlifting, you don't train dropping weights. So the more weight in the training session, the more you actually train dropping weights. You don't train lifting weights, right? But what's for example golden, and like I think this is when you really master the weightlifting part, is they never leave the floor with their feet. There's always connection with the feet with the floor, because which is true, obviously. The moment you lose contact with the floor, you don't have any kind of force going through the bar and through the body. But like their whole no feet system, and like for example, when they tap, kind of, they lift their heel a bit and then they literally slide the foot onto the floor, and it creates that little bit of a tap, but it doesn't create that beautiful tap sometimes which you like hear on competitions like a thunder. And they also base everything on efficiency. So in their technique, like in the Eastern European more way, which I was told before, is like you pull the bar as high as you can and then you sit underneath, right? Because in theory, if the bar is heavier, you lift it higher, it's going to be a better lift. But then the interesting part is about the Chinese is they pull only always to the same height. So you lift always the bar into the same height, you do the same thing over and over. And they do the reverse thing. So they use the power of the legs to that extent that they can pull to the height they need in the lift. That's it. And then with the weight, they increase the power. But they don't do always everything the most powerful they can. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So that was a big eye opener for me, being like, wow, okay, like, so I actually can do a lift being efficient and quick and not tiring myself the most I have to. That makes sense?
Yeah, you're not over pulling the lighter weights, basically.
Exactly. So if you would like take a warm up of a Eastern person and then a Chinese person, the Chinese person moves like a cat. They move like slowly and fast and this and that. And the Eastern, they literally try to break the bar. They go, it's like a powerful power snatch. The bar path is not very clear because like the power from the hip is so powerful that you can't physically get in a nice line. And they every time do the same. So that's the difference which I learned. And it opened my eyes, and even the more back going to the conscious training, like how much effort do you put to make your lifts look the same? But then saying it only and trying to do it is like completely two different things.
Just on that, just because that fascinates me. So with the Chinese and their pull, so if we're just using the body part example, say they're always going to pull to say their nipples every time. That bar will never, no, whether it's 40 kilos or 100 kilos or more, it's always going to pull to that nipple, and then they're going to go under it and whatever. So if they're pulling to a power though, and their hips need to be higher, don't they need to pull higher?
Yep. So, but that's what I'm saying. They have a set height, right? So, for example, snatch, you pull to the chest.
Right. Yeah.
Power
okay. You pull to the neck. Yeah.
To the neck.
Okay. Yes.
But
I see.
The clean is pulled to the belly button.
Yep.
The power clean pulled to the chest.
Yeah, I love it.
And that's a set thing. That's a set thing, and it's insane because I always thought that it doesn't matter, but now when I consciously pull the bar to these points, I even feel in my back there is a certain position in my back which I starting to strengthen, And then basically my body feels, oh, it's here, go. Like it's there, go.
I want to do some
Feel
weightlifting now. Feel that.
that a lot of tension in my back going up and up and up and slowing by the slowing down the bar. It's just, I feel the position. I go super cool.
I love that. I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of people, because one of the things I see is that people have more or less confidence with the turnover at the different heights. So it's not even necessarily the weight, but because it's a new position essentially that you're trying to turn over, you don't have the same confidence. Whereas even if you're drilling it from light all the way through to heavy, like you say, you're drilling that automatic nature of, if the bar is at this height, this is what I do. I'm happy to get my elbows up for a clean. I'm happy to punch under from a snatch. Whereas if it's different height every time, the body's effectively learning lots of different skills. So it actually makes a lot of sense to practice the same positions regardless of weight.
So is this also why the I can't even think what the name of the exercise is called, but like basically like a delayed snatch and a delayed thing, always the pat and then bat, like that positional thing. Is that where that exercise comes from? Because you have the ability to understand where that, say, the nipple is, to then right now there's the turnover. Is okay.
Yeah. Yes, it makes. They do it. It's a I don't also remember. It's few. I've seen few names for this, but basically it's more of like a tall variation of the movement. Tall snatch, tall clean. This is what they call it, but this is what I call it at least. But yeah, it is a bit, because like, again, as we said before, like slowing down the movement. Obviously, on the big weights, and this is not how you lift, but slowing down the movement on lighter weights get you a better understanding of it, right? And then, as you say, like people struggle to sit under because they don't feel good, they're afraid and stuff like that. If you consciously feel the whole movement, you're not going to be scared. Why are you scared? Everything is there, right? But yeah, so this, and the next thing, what was insane, which like the balance of the feet and everything made even more sense for me, is that they pull to that height and then they sit, but the whole process is done in one go. So you stand up, you pull, and you sit at the same time. And as Coach Mack called it, the shortcuts, they all do the minimum way, the minimum kind of effort they need to do to lift. And that makes so much sense. And also, I think that's why I was good at, from judo to weightlifting, because my favorite saying is that you put minimum effort for the maximum output, or whatever it is. Like it's really, really like a methodical thing where you think, oh, in weightlifting, I should use all of my power. But yeah, but if you use all of your power and you go to a weightlifting competition, there's 3 lifts on each. So what you can't use all of your power in the first lift, can you?
That's really cool. I think that is the opposite of what a lot of people, myself included in the past, have coached to say basically practice your full extension before dropping under the bar. What would you say to help coaches who have that approach understand why it's a better idea? Because I think the worry that coaches would have with that is that you teach people to cut short their full extension. So when it gets heavier and they need more power, they're used to sort of muting that hip extension. How does that factor into things?
So that's an interesting one. And I think it's also, again, we go back to the conscious training all the time, but like you train extension, but the lift is so fast later on that you have no control of saying when you sit. You feel when you sit, or it happens itself. And what I think people do, which I now struggle, I'm struggling, my athletes struggle with trying to understand. I tell them, you need to stand up, and then whatever happens, happens. Don't think about it. And loads of people start thinking about the sitting when they start the lift from the first pull. And then they basically barely touch the thighs, or they're not even there, and they're already sitting. And they're very quick. They're super quick at sitting, but they literally cut the most important part of the lift out of it. But again, it's a body feeling. It's not in your brain. You can't decide what happens because it's so fast.
Yeah,
so that's
I get that.
Like when I said that, like the Chinese, for example, do everything at the same time, and that will make a lot of sense if you will try to do it. If you never done it and you hear it, and me including on the seminar, I was like, That's fucking bullshit. Like, how you can do it? But our brain, our thoughts are slower than what happens in this movement. So you actually have to think that everything happens in the same time, and then you will actually make it happen. Like you will look like hook grip people, basically.
Yeah, I think that's that stand up and then worry about it, I think, is the key bit there, is that you still have to stand up, which makes more aligns more with, I guess, how I've been doing it.
If we give notes and then help out, which you can train with a snatch or a clean turnover, which Chinese train a lot. So that you stand straight, you keep your shoulders up to your ears, you lift your heels off, and you just sit under and just land. I think this is a very underestimated exercise, including people which they start lifting. You need to be able to do that. Like this is a condition. Like you have to be able to do this position and this transition to be able to be good at lifting. And like in my weightlifting classes and my weightlifting club, when I do this with people and new people come, and I give them even the stick, and I say, look, like, do this. If you can't do it with a 10 kilo bar, because we don't have lighter bars in our gym, but if you can't do it with a lighter bar, then do it with a stick, but train the movement pattern. Because loads of people, which they come, let's say I have lifters, they can clean 100 kilos easily, right? And then I give them that exercise with an empty bar, and they can't do it. But then when they crack it with 30, 40 kilos, how to do it, because you can also load these movements, right? If they crack it, their total goes up immediately. Immediately it goes up.
Yeah, excellent. One other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and it leads nicely on from what we were just discussing, is because you've been to so many weightlifting courses, you've coached a lot, and you've seen a lot of people coach weightlifting. We have a lot of coaches who listen to the podcast as well. Do you have any advice for them on how to coach weightlifting better? What are the common mistakes that people you see made in teaching weightlifting to athletes and clients?
So my first thing is, which helped me to be good at coaching weightlifting, as you said, I went in many places and I watched people lift. Loads of people, how they lift. Don't give them cues. Don't think about bullshit. Just look at them, how they move. Look at the different points of the body. Don't just look at the bar. The bar doesn't fucking matter usually. That's the last thing where you should look at. Look how they position themselves, how much time they spend in the starting position. Like, just watch people lift, and then you will see across many lifters the same patterns. They literally now when I coach, I know it's one of three cases. It's always one of three cases that they do. Or they shag the bar, or they jump and they can't sit under, or they over pull the bar. Like, very simple things, and they all do it because the understanding of the movement is not there. And when you look at it, and we humans are built like that. When we're born, you look at things and you want to replicate them, right? We're always going to do it. But the older you are, the worse you are at this. You look at the thing and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do it the same. And it doesn't happen. So basically watch people lift loads. Try to understand what happens, why they can't do things and stuff like that. And then try to find a solution and then sell it to them. Then go and try to cue them. Don't fucking tell them what's wrong, because that's the biggest nonsense I ever heard. They know it's wrong. They don't need to know what is wrong, because they don't know the answer. Don't tell them what is wrong, because you will just make them feel bad. They will be confused, and it's going to finish in just a situation where you both feel bad, because you as a coach, I know there's a lot of pride in people and stuff like that. You don't want to admit that you don't know what's happening, but you should. And you should find a solution for it. But don't tell them, these people, oh yeah, you're not going under the bar. He fucking knows that. On the power position, and he can't sit. He knows that. And the last thing I want to say, just train yourself with different methods and look for different sources. There is no perfect way of training, that nobody made up a perfect training system. Look at the Russians, look at the Bulgarians, look at the Chinese, look where the schools are the best in the world, who lifts the best in the world, and then try to take stuff out of it. That's an interesting thing, again, going back to the Chinese seminar. The Chinese sent in the 1950s people out to Bulgaria and Russia to train with them for a year. And then after a year, they took them back to fucking China, sat them down and said, guys, what they doing? They wrote everything down. They deleted what is in their theory wrong by science, and they created a method.
Yeah.
And they're the best in the world.
Do you know what? Just kind of back on the bit you said before, and that really resonated with me because I fully agree with it, is the go to people with solutions, not problems. And it's like, that's always, I got taught that from my general manager of a Virgin Active. He said, never come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution, and then you can maybe describe the problem, but I want to know the solution. And it really resonated with me for all these years. This was probably 9 years ago I heard that. And same when it comes across to the coaching, whereas it's like, for me, if I'm telling them the problem, I'm making sure I'm telling them how to fix it as well straight over, because I like to at least help them understand that, okay, you didn't get under the bar, so they identified that problem, and they say, and this is how we're going to try and fix it on this next set. Because I do think it is important to identify these things and tell them the problem, even if they know, because a lot of the time they don't know. They just know they failed the lift. They don't know they didn't get under the bar, or they didn't know they're over pulling because the bar's going miles.
Don't get me wrong, Rob. You completely right, but what I mean, like when you have a beginner, right? You obviously tell them for an educational process. Look, this is what's happening. This is how we can repair this. That they're conscious about it, how to do it. But like, it's just, in my opinion, there's no work done in it, right? Yeah. You're a coach. You want to coach people, so coach people. Don't tell them what is wrong. Don't be a doctor and be like, here's a pill. Like, don't do that shit. Like, I completely agree with you. Like for educational, because I don't know how you, but I have some athletes, which they're great athletes, and they want to just train, but they don't give a fuck about how they're going to train. I'm here for that task. But then I have people, which they come to me and they're like, oh, I want to train with you, but I would like to also learn how to coach. And then these people are where you go like, look, this is happening, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Awesome. Max, thank you so much. I want to be respectful of your time, and I know you've got to get up to Derby for the English competition. So, yeah, really grateful for all your wisdom. I think that's going to be massively helpful for a lot of people listening, whether they're an athlete or a coach. I think there's going to be a lot of improvements in weightlifting happening to Lunge and Lift listeners over the next few weeks. If people want to find out more about you, where should they look?
My Instagram page, Max Rusowski. And yeah, basically I'm at WIT hosting my classes there. If you would like to learn something, drop definitely down for a Sunday. I have a 90-minute class there. On that note, I also run a Search Performance online programming of my own. And the last thing about the Chinese weightlifting thing, I will take Coach Ma down here in February 11th and the 12th.
Sick.
And he's going to be at WIT. I will host a seminar, 2-day seminar. So stay tuned also for more info about that.
Yeah, definitely be there. And mate, lastly, on your English performance, what are you planning on hitting at your competition?
So basically, as I said, I gambled a bit with the new method. So I did the lifting, I did the work. I tested my openers on Sunday after the comp. My legs were not working. I was like, okay, we'll see what I can do. And I did 105 and 130.
Nice.
So I would like to open on 100 on 125 just to be safe.
Yep.
And then ideally I would love to do 110 on 140. That would be like, I can do 50 in a total on the English. That would be like great.
And what's your body weight at the moment?
78.5.
Yeah, so fucking strong.
Yeah.
So mate, thank you very much for coming on. I honestly listen to a lot of this stuff. I am absolutely buzzing to get back to some weightlifting at some point. I've got to focus on my powerlifting first, get that done. But I'm really looking forward to trying out some of these things and even just putting them into practice with some play, because I think that's also part of what you mentioned during the podcast is just having fun with the barbell, even warming up with some muscle snatches, muscle cleans and stuff before some back squats for me would be good anyway. So yeah, thank you very much, mate, and good luck in your competition.
Thank you very much, boys.
Thank you, Max. That was awesome. Really, really loved that. And to hear, I think, some of those insights, especially into the Chinese weightlifting way of doing stuff, it really got me thinking. And just because I realised a lot of my coaching or even thoughts on how to weightlift myself has definitely come a lot more from like the Eastern side of stuff rather than the actual Chinese side of stuff. So once I've kind of got my powerlifting stuff out of the way, I'm looking forward to kind of putting some of these practices into place and kind of picking your brains a bit more to maybe dive a bit deeper into that for a period. But we really hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did and Ash did. If you did and you know other people that are into weightlifting or kind of getting into it with their CrossFit, do share this episode. Try and help spread this message. And if you do want to find out more details, then either contact at lunge.lift or contact Max himself. His details will be in the description box below about either learning more about weightlifting directly or even about that Chinese weightlifting seminar in the new year. So thank you very much as always. Really look forward to speaking to you next week.
Cheers, guys.